Hello, welcome to this week's edition of More Insight Strategy, the Enterprise App Podcast. This is episode 18. I'm Melody Brue, and with me, as always, is Robert Kramer, VP and Principal Analyst. So, Robert, I just wrapped up a busy week in Raleigh at the Lenovo Global Industry Analyst Conference, where I got a preview of Tech World. Lots of great conversations there, mostly under NDA, so we're going to have to wait until those things go public. But how are you doing? What's happening in your world?
Hey, happy Friday. I believe it's Friday. Whether we're supposed to say that or not, I did, but sorry about that. I'm great, Mel. It's been a busy week. I was in Philadelphia at Data IQ's Analyst Summit, diving deep into data orchestration and AI governance discussions. So between the two of us, we've logged quite a few miles this week. It's been valuable for us to stay connected to what's actually happening in the market. So it's been a pretty busy time of this year.
It certainly is the busiest time of year, and we're live, and I have my phone buzzing, so I'm going to tell it to stop. It's come from one thing to another. As you know, you've been on many of the calls with me, but anyway, we'll get going. So on this show, we cover all the tools, trends, and trajectories across people and marketing technologies, enterprise apps, ERP, CRM, and the data infrastructure, tying it all together. We've been tracking some significant announcements recently from Google, Oracle, Salesforce, Microsoft, and they're really all centered around AI agents, agentic capabilities. And then we have a little breaking news from Veeam. So before we dive in, usual disclaimer, this show is for information and entertainment only. While we will discuss publicly traded companies, nothing here should be taken as investment advice.
Well, let's get started then. We have Google Gemini at work and the agent economy.
Yeah, so Google's Gemini at Work announcements, this really is a pivot in their kind of enterprise AI positioning. So what I think is particularly interesting is how they're framing this as the new front door for AI in the workplace, which, and I say that like this, air quotes, because we've heard that. We've heard the front door. Everybody's trying to be the front door. So I think we heard it first, honestly, from ServiceNow, but we hear it from Salesforce and many others. But breaking that down, that language really means that they're just trying to establish this central platform approach rather than offering point solutions.
Yeah, and the timing is actually very good because Google launched Gemini Enterprise. It's a distinct platform under Google Cloud that functions as an AI agent toolkit, right? So it's designed to let companies build and deploy their own AI assistants. So what we're seeing in the industry as it's moving pretty fast, what I call first wave AI, where capabilities were siloed towards more orchestrated, agent-driven systems that can now handle more complex, multi-function workflows. That's where we're at today.
Yeah, and I think we're finally starting to hear a nice ROI story that really has been hard for a lot of vendors to capture concretely. So
Mhm.
Virgin Voyages they've reported to have deployed more than 50 specialized AI agents on Gemini Enterprise, which means this isn't just an experimental pilot. So the real question now is whether enterprise buyers is whether this will represent or does represent already a general operational or genuine an operational transformation, or if we're still in the early stages of proving value at scale. But to start to see some ROI coming out of these deployments is great.
That's the critical distinction. So Google is talking about what they call the agent economy. There's an interesting thesis embedded in that, the idea that AI might displace certain job functions. We talk about this all the time, but
Mhm.
creates opportunity for the workforce deployment toward a higher value work. And that's the distinction that we're seeing. And can these workforce, can they be strategic? So for the buyers evaluating this, the key considerations are around integration complexity, data governance. So these agents need to access to the proprietary enterprise data, which means organizations need robust privacy controls and clear data lineage, things that we've talked about a lot, especially in regulated industries like financial services or healthcare.
Yeah. I think the agent economy concept is fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about how enterprise consume AI, but it's really creating this new developer ecosystem at the same time. So what we're seeing emerge is this marketplace model, and Google talked about this a lot. Actually, it was on an analyst call with TK. This model creates independent software vendors, like the developers and independent software vendors, can build specialized agents and monetize them. So think of that sort of like an app store model for AI agents. So a developer could create an agent for a specific vertical, like commercial real estate lease analysis or pharmaceutical regulatory compliance, whatever it is. They can sell that license to enterprises that need those capabilities. So it changes the economics of enterprise AI from these large monolithic deployments to more module and purpose-built
Mhm.
deployments, and they can be composed together. And I think it also will have an impact on the job loss fear that AI has sort of perpetuated. Not that
And
it's not somewhat true, but it,
that's a complex subject, but that marketplace dynamic could accelerate innovation pretty significantly, especially for niche use cases that major vendors might not prioritize.
mhm. The integration, this addresses a major challenge with enterprise AI because Google is positioning the platform to connect with existing systems, G Suite, Microsoft 365, Salesforce, SAP. But as always, the proof is going to be in how these connections actually work in the complex hybrid IT environments. And we've heard a lot of promises about these unified platforms before. So I think we'll see what the execution details are on this, and that's really what will matter.
Well, we'll continue to watch all of that, and it's pretty exciting. So, but last week there was something pretty significant. Oracle announced a lot of different things last week, but AI world, they changed from Oracle Cloud World with strategic emphasis, obviously, on AI, specifically for things that I like to cover, which are ERP and the supply chain. But
Yeah.
yeah, so operational these domains have historically been pretty restrictive, and now we're seeing a lot of things that are opening up, and Oracle's put a lot of emphasis on that.
Yeah, you wrote a lot about this. Great couple of articles, actually.
Thank you.
And I think for me, what stood out in your Forbes coverage is the shift from predictive to proactive and
Mhm.
also autonomous. So there, Oracle is promoting agents that don't just forecast, which is sort of the past, right? What they did in the past. They're executing on transactions, managing exceptions, adjusting to supply chain parameters, but in real time. So I think that's a meaningful evolution. But it also raises questions about trust and accountability when autonomous systems are making these kinds of financial and operational decisions. So, I mean, what's your take on that?
I think exactly what you're saying. It's going to be where the humans and AI, the robots, actually collaborate, and there has to be trust, like you mentioned, and there has to be strategicness from the workforce. So Oracle did announce specific agents embedded in Fusion Cloud, and that's a good thing. So, but again, back to the trust. So, but some of those deal with payable agents for invoice management, ledger agent for real time financial insights. A lot of it deals with the procurement and the supply chain, and these are really areas where there's manual efforts to try and fix that to be more efficient. But these are all designed, are all pre-built and integrated into the suite, and they say there's no additional cost, which is an important signal from a price perspective. But the success will be, on the ROI, and can organizations show measurable results and faster cycle times, improved forecast accuracy, like you mentioned before.
Yeah, the Oracle AI data platform announcement, that seems to be really foundational to this strategy. So, and this is really kind of, I'll defer to you as the data expert here, but they say that it's designed to unify the data ingestion, semantic enrichment, and vector indexing, all with generative AI tools, all running on Oracle Cloud infrastructure. So really they're saying this is their enterprise grade data platform that can support agentic automation, and they've invested $1.5 billion in it. So do you believe this is ready for prime time?
Well, the integration of NVIDIA's accelerated computing infrastructure and support for open standards like MCP, that's pretty significant. MCP, as we all know, it enables interoperability across the vendor systems. It sets them up for what's going to happen in the future as we pivot towards sometime in the future in a more of an event-driven system. But if
Yeah.
Oracle can demonstrate that their agents can live across all these different pieces of the Fusion applications, I think it's a great thing, and they're trying to get rid of these siloed data areas and automate everything. I think that's the plan.
Yeah. It seems to me like many enterprises are going to have to adopt in phased approaches. So limited number of agents in specific workflows before committing to these broader deployments, because we have to acknowledge the fact that we're looking at legacy system integration, governance framework. There's massive organizational change management, which we've talked about a lot, but I can't state this. The amount of pushback that companies are getting on just using AI, one, I think because it's a threat to jobs, but also there is a learning curve there. So I think this phased approach is probably um, that's probably where we're going to see the most adoption, is where people
Like,
kind of take it slow.
well, like you say, you don't have to go to 0 to 100 right away. Go to 0 to 1 and just
Yeah.
get going. So you're out of the gate. You're moving forward with AI.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of companies are gonna have to do, even though they wanna tell the story of 0 to 100, and that can actually be confusing to the market, I think, and I love, I don't know if you saw this, I thought it was brilliant, because everybody's talking about how, we all need agents, and everybody's gonna rely on these agents, and ServiceNow, they did an ad in, I think it was in Wall Street Journal, and they said, "You don't need agents. You don't need AI agents." And the whole premise around that was they need you, which is really smart, because when you think about this, these agents aren't ready to just go off on their own and do your work. The agents actually need not just a human in the loop, but a human for training, a human for development, a human for monitoring, a human. I mean, so there's so much of a bigger story to what people are kind of throwing out there as like kind of the big answer to like how we're going to all of a sudden make work magical. So, um,
Totally.
Salesforce just had Dreamforce, and there were a lot of updates, and of course, a lot of AI announcements around there centered around Agentforce, their platform for building and deploying autonomous AI agents. So, um, I think we've got to look at this from a couple of different angles, right? Mark Benioff sort of declared this as like the copilot era is over, meaning the agent that sort of sits alongside of you may help you with event summary or some meeting summaries and things that we're all sort of used to using. Also, chatbot based agent interactions
Mhm.
to what he's calling the third wave. And without giving anything away, we heard a lot about that this week at Lenovo. Um, I think this is going to get really interesting. And I don't know. What were your thoughts around
I
Salesforce?
think I think they're framing it up to be kind of like what you talked about, and they're actually doing a lot with supply chain as well. They're offering out of the box agents for service sales development as well, and commerce, like the service agent that replaces, like you just mentioned, chatbots.
Mhm.
I do think it's framing up to be the next generation. Instead of just talking about it, they're actually going to be more productive, integrating with other very mission critical systems like supply chain, even ERP. As we move forward with all this, they're lining themselves up for their platform to be a little richer than it was,
Mhm.
not as focused on just CRM and data, but it's going to be more heavily involved in my projections.
Yeah, I think that service agent that replaces the chatbot, they've had some pretty significant success with that. And if you think about that, there are a lot of questions that can get answered with very simple answers. And then there's the more complicated stuff that's going to be, a human that's going to handle that. And I think, let's say, one of the more notable things is how Salesforce is really emphasizing this unified platform strategy. So they're arguing that Data Cloud and the underlying Salesforce platform can provide the foundation for building agents without the complexity of what they call DIY AI projects. To me, there's a little bit of like a mixed message there because DIY, everybody's doing DIY in some way, right? I mean, every company now has an agent builder, and these things can be very bespoke and customized to whatever you need it for. Yet they're saying you don't have to do DIY, we can do it all for you. So I think there's got to be some clarity around what's out of the box, what do you have to build, and what's the underlying structure that's going to reduce that integration friction, because there's been a lot of let's say like add-ons, and even the company they've done a lot of M&A activity where all of these things are sort of built under this unified platform, and we can't see under the hood. Do we know how unified it actually is? So I think theoretically it should reduce the integration friction, but I think that'll be remain that is has remained well remain to be seen. Let me get that out.
Yeah, and just in closing on this, I think it signals an open strategy, and for their ecosystem to expand and include Google Cloud and Box and AWS and IBM and Zoom and Workday. So this is the way that things are moving to be more of an intelligent workflow to expand with CRM and SCM and ERP functions. So that's the
Mhm,
direction I was mentioning before, and I think that's where we're going. So,
mhm.
but I think should we wrap up, or you want to do what do we want to do?
We have, let's see, where are we at with time? Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap up here, but we have let's just talk a quick little note about Microsoft. They just announced Dragon Copilot for nurses. So I really like this. Here's why. We've talked about this in sports before. The language of a nurse and a doctor are not as similar as what you would think. Just the same way that the language of sports, the language of tennis is different than the language of golf. And these models to be able to understand those semantics and get that right. So with the nursing workflows with ambient documentation capabilities, the differentiation here is really important. Even think about it. I'm going to make a funny comparison of a nurse to a tennis player. A shot. What does a shot mean to a nurse versus what it means to a tennis player? So the way that these models are trained is actually so important. This is not just a vertical play. This is a very smart way of actually teaching these models to speak the language of the professional who's going to be using it. And I think it's going to eliminate a lot of confusion and a lot of those hallucinations that we get. And you're right, we're running out of time because we're both expected to be on another call right now. So we're gonna wrap this up unless you wanna do a quick
Nope.
little your 2 cents on Veeam's new acquisition, or do we hold that to next week?
Let's hold it till next week, and we'll keep our
All right.
what we feel to then. So it sounds great. Keep everybody in the dark.
All
So
right. So as we wrap this up, thank you for joining us as we continue to track the very evolving landscape of enterprise applications and AI. We'll be back next week, so join us then, and we'll give you the scoop if you don't already know about Veeam. We just kind of announced it, but we're not going to talk about it now. But we'll have a lot to say about it next week. Thanks for joining us, and let us know what you want to hear about next week.
thank you.
All right, bye.